Story 1. I just want to get this out. First time poster. It's going to be a long one. If anyone finishes it, I would be surprised. For a little background, I am the 41 years old betrayed spouse. My wife of 10 years, 31 wayward spouse, and I have 2 children, one of whom, 4 years old, was diagnosed with cancer in 2016 and had 2 long years of treatment before he was finally declared cancer-free. He is in good health now, thank God, and during that time, my wife spent most of her time with him at the hospital, 70 plus miles away, except for most weekends, when I would come and give her a break, and allow her a few hours or days with our daughter. During this time, I was the only one working, and when I would get off work, I would help our daughter, 6 at the time, with homework, bath, food, and try to keep the house straight, bills paid, laundry caught up, etc. It was a hard time for us all, as we missed each other, were worried about our son, and didn't get to spend as much time together as we truly wanted to. Everything started in June of 2019. My mother-in-law, who was involved with a married man for many years, came to stay with us for the summer in order to help us with the kids. She has always been a little bossy, and my wife believes everything that comes out of her mouth, and very nearly worships her mother's every word. She has never had a job in the 12 plus years I've known her, and she has burned many of her bridges with her own family, including her own mother, who wants nothing to do with her. She is constantly putting GoFundMes online and takes advantage when she is here, going everywhere we go, at my expense, and doing whatever she wants with her own little bit of money she gets from disability. She has always been a bit jealous of my relationship with my wife, and my wife tends to do anything the mill wants. So, my mill came down in June, and my wife immediately began to gravitate towards her, and she began sitting across the room with my mill, and they would both sit on their phones, texting each other, talking occasionally and pretty much leaving me out in the cold. This happened for pretty much 6 months, as the mill wasn't ready to leave, and my wife didn't want her to. My wife had started getting headaches that never seemed to go away. In November, I finally told her that her mom needed to leave soon, but that she could hang around through Thanksgiving and Christmas because I didn't want her to be alone during the holidays. My wife and I started smoking again after 6 years quit, my wife lying to me about starting, and me picking it back up after a month of constantly smelling it on her. Right before Christmas, my wife's friend and former coworker comes to visit for a few hours, and I take everyone, my mill, my wife's friend's husband and 2 children included, to dinner, and my wife decides that she wants to have a sleepover with this friend's children at my house. And that my wife should go with her for a girls' night out, without so much as asking. My wife jumps at the chance at a night out, and I comply, figuring she could have some girl time. This particular friend hasn't always been very friendly with me. She walked around telling everyone that my daughter wasn't mine when my wife was pregnant a few years before, and when confronted she resorted to denying it, and gaslighting. So, my wife goes with her friend. It's January 2020, I help watch the friend's children and mine with the mill, and she spends a night with her friend 2 hours away. The next day, my wife comes home, in a good mood, and everything seems okay. The next day, it's like a switch is flipped, and suddenly, my wife is even more tuned in with her mom than usual, and literally says nothing to me the entire day. A week later, my birthday rolls around, we go to dinner, and she is very distant. When we finally talk, she's angry, and wants to talk to me about our marriage. She has a list that she wrote up, and in it, she wants us to move, which was something we had been planning for several years, wanted to know if I had cheated on her with a coworker. I hadn't, and she felt that I had locked up when our son was sick, leaving her to deal with everything alone. She came in angry, so defensively. I tried to defend myself against all of this, and she stopped talking to me, and for the next few days, I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Her mother finally left to go home, but nothing changed. She continued messaging her mother, and going to work, but she wouldn't talk to me. Finally, I asked my father to watch the kids. I want to take her out to dinner, and apologize that she felt that way, and to tell her I wanted to make it up. She has a few drinks, and we go home. She still sits away from me, and drunkenly falls asleep on the couch. I felt like we had made a little headway. She at least talked to me at dinner, so I decide to pick her up and take her to bed. As I reach for her, her phone buzzes, and when I look expecting to find a text from her mom, It's from someone else. I read it, then open her phone and read what she was texting at dinner. Scruffy man, a pet name she used for me when I was unshaved. I've had a few drinks. I wish you could put your hands on me. I miss you. I fell completely apart. It turns out, on her girls' trip, she went to a bar with her friend, got drunk, met the bartender, and he took her to the friend's house and slept with my wife. I looked at texts to her friend, and she and her friend and mother had been bashing me for months, and my wife, trying to make it sound like I was always angry, did nothing to help around the house, and was cheating on her when I was visiting my father. My mother-in-law was reporting everything I did to my wife when she was at work, and my wife had been texting this guy for weeks since the Raleigh trip. After a minute of panic, I woke my wife up and asked her what was going on. She of course denied it, trying to snatch the phone away, and getting angry that I had dared look at her phone. I never, for 1 second in our marriage, distrusted my wife. Holding her phone, I sent a message to the guy to not call/text my wife ever again. As soon as my wife got her phone back, she messaged him to ask if he was alright as I sat on the floor of our bedroom in tears. I told her to leave, but after thinking of my kids, told her she could stay, and she slept in the living room in her favorite chair. I told my wife that she had to call out of work the next day and talk to me, and I took the next morning off, only for her to jump in her car and go to work. I spent the day falling apart, feeling like my whole world had ended. The kids came home the next day, and I tried to pretend everything was great, and my wife came home, sat in the same chair across the room and ignored me again. This continued for several days, she finally admitting to sleeping with the guy, but that she was drunk and didn't remember doing it, even though she remembered enough to text the guy for a few weeks. Her excuse was that I didn't care about her headaches, and that she had passed out one morning from the pain while her mom was visiting, and I didn't care. This was news to me. I also wouldn't go with her to the doctor about the headaches. She always went to the doctor with her mother, and they would go shopping after, so I went to work. Every time it was brought up, it was my fault. She was sick of me, and I caused it, and she didn't want to talk about it. During this time, I lost 60 pounds and went on antidepressants. Later, I found that she had sent a D-pic of the guy to her mom, and that her mom was coaching her on ways to hide what she was doing. One night, completely exhausted, I went out with my work friends, and came home to find my wife on her phone texting away again. I demanded she talk to me. I was tired of getting the runaround and wanted to know if she was still talking to him. I followed her outside and stood behind the car, and in front of the door, and when she locked herself in the bedroom, I tried to take the door apart to get in, calmly enough that the kids asked what I was doing, and I told them that silly mommy had locked herself in. Finally, I brought up counseling with a stranger that a work friend advised me to talk to, an assistant preacher who had dealt with these types of things before. Still cold, my wife agreed and we went. It went okay, I thought, and we agreed to go back the next week to talk to him again. The next night, my son had to go to the doctor to set up an appointment for a scan, and my wife took him, and my father picked up my daughter from school so I could work. About an hour after I got home, and got my daughter from my dad, my wife showed up at the house, conspicuously without my son. My wife wanted to take our daughter to a coworker's house to show her the coworker's pets. I was a little suspicious something was up, but she left after a kiss and an I love you. 30 minutes later, 3 deputies showed up at the house and made me leave. My wife had filed a domestic disorder protection order against me. I had to go to my dad's house, unable to talk to my wife, or see my kids anywhere near the house. I got a few clothes and my work laptop and left. I got a lawyer, and after a week of not seeing my wife, not knowing how my son's cancer scans had gone, and only able to see my kids at lunchtime at school, my wife tried to tell them the kids were terrified of me, and that I shouldn't be able to see them, but the magistrate denied this. She also had the school secretary report to her when I came to see the kids. She told them that I was listening in on our Alexa devices, and driving by constantly, all lies. Her headaches were from all the stress she had to endure from me. The court date came, and my lawyer served her with custody papers before the hearing, and we went in. The judge listened to us both, and her friend from the girls' night, and a friend of mine who had known us both and tried to talk to my wife after DD. In the end, the judge dropped the DVPO, as he agreed we argued, but not that I had in any way harmed or threatened to harm my wife. I went back to my dad's house, trying to figure out what to do next, when one of my kids called. They wanted me to come over, they missed me, and I told them to ask their mother if it was okay if I stopped by for a few minutes. She agreed, and I went to visit my kids, in the driveway, with my father in tow for a witness. The kids bounced out of the house, and told me all about how my wife's friend had been staying at the house for a few days, and how they missed me, and then my wife came out. She didn't know that's what they were going to do and she was so sorry. She was done with the guy and she wanted to work on us. I entered the house to realize that she and her friend were packing all of her stuff, the children's stuff, and anything of value that belonged to me. The plan was to take what she wanted and take off with the kids, and send me her request for child support and alimony, and me unable to get within 400 feet of her. She gave my father and I a piece of cake that she and her mother had bought to celebrate my son's clear scans, and I left, promising to give her the space she needed to figure out what she wanted. We began to go to counseling, the counselors more social workers than actual counselors, more interested in avoiding confrontation than dealing with the issues it seemed. The counselor didn't feel like my wife should surrender her phone or passwords because it would cause her to have to walk on eggshells and my wife could easily get a second phone. Her friends didn't agree to have their texts read and I would have to trust my wife. I was disappointed, but I thought we might be able to work through this. I began visiting in the morning to help the kids get ready for school, and again to tuck them in at night, which she was okay with, but still, I stayed with my dad to give her space. Valentine's Day was fast approaching, and I hoped that she would want to do something with me, so I bought chocolates and a great big stuffed animal to surprise her and the kids. I tucked the kids in on February 13th, and my wife seemed extremely eager for me to leave. She was tired and just wanted to lay down. So, my wife kisses and hugs me, and I leave, but not before my worries get the best of me. I lay in bed that night, wondering if I should drive by, and make sure everything is on the level, but I don't want to be that guy who actually spies on his wife. I wake up early that morning and head to the house. I let myself in and drop off the gifts, picking up something of mine that I dropped the night before. Soon after, I'm listening to my wife having sex with another man in my house, with my kids in the next room. I drove back to the house, opened the door, woke up my wife and tell her I know. Again, she goes to work, not wanting to talk, and I take the kids to school, again, devastated. This time, she needs to leave. I'm tired of paying bills for a house I can't live in, and I know I didn't do anything to deserve all this. Late that night, she shows up, swearing that it will never happen again on our children's lives, and that she's sorry. Again, I'm a sucker, and start to give in for my kids. She finally leaves, and 2 days later she's back in the house. My mill was all over Facebook telling everyone our business, and making my wife out to be the sufferer of a horrible guy running over top of her. Later her mother sent me a text that included "I will never respect you, I will never trust you, you are welcome for everything I did for you," like a lunatic. Again, I try to understand. Her grandmother and aunt both reach out to me, and I find out she's telling everyone half of the truth. We split, but not that she cheated. I'm hurt, angry, and I can't imagine how the woman I married could be so cruel. She tries to reason with me over the custody, but I refuse to drop it at this point. Her mother visits, again, this time for 5 months, and they inform me that because we were separated that my wife bringing guy number 2 into my house was none of my business. My wife refuses to let me see her without clothes on, and moves into another room. The kids ask me why we aren't buying a house, when we were planning to, even had the down payment before I had to hire a lawyer to defend myself, but I take the blame because I can't tell the kids it's because mommy hurt daddy. Then my wife decides she wants to separate for a few months, to date each other again and see if it works. I find a place, and drag my feet hoping my wife will change her mind. She doesn't, and I find myself living in a new house 5 miles from my old home in April 2020. We agree to afford a 3 custody and alternating weeks during the summer. Throughout all this, her story is that she hadn't loved me in a long time and the first guy called her and listened to her and cared about her headaches. The second guy she slept with because she felt so bad about everything, and I wouldn't drop the custody. He was some guy she says she met at work, but later I found out it was a coworker's husband. We had multiple conversations, each one changing slightly, each one with her not taking the blame. Eventually, it was her friend and her mother's fault. She finally apologized, though she tried to make it seem like she had been apologizing all alone. More gaslighting, and we started dating. It started with 1 day a week, eventually moving to 2-3. Several months in, she spent the night at my house, but had to be gone early the next morning. She couldn't afford the house, and was looking for another. I finally stepped in and helped pay a few bills so she didn't lose lights and water. I moved back in October, and things have gotten better. She helped with the bills, till she quit her job, and she appears to finally be trying, but I still hold a lot of resentment, and I have come to the point I don't feel like counseling is actually doing us any good. I still feel like there is so much more that I don't know. She tells me rubbers were involved, though I don't know if I believe it. She also swore she sent no dirty pics, but I found out she was lying. She swears that she broke it off with both of them, though I think they both got what they wanted and moved on. I found the first guy was Snapchatting with her in May, leaving me her fallback. I'm trying. It's been 16 months since the first D-Day, and I have good days, but I worry about what will happen when she starts listening to her mother again. Triggers are everywhere, and I don't know if she means anything she says anymore. We are actually trying to close on a house next month, and my wife has agreed to a postnap so she can't take the house. Her mother finally showed her true colors, and my wife got to see it, trying to use the kids to lie to my wife about me, and my wife finally caught on. I just don't know. I loved who I thought she was, part of me still loves her now. I know I was good to her, better than most would have been. I'm just tired, I guess. What is it about this woman that you love? She has treated you like dirt, taken your dignity from you, and cheated on you more times than she has actually told you. And yet you come back for more and more and more. You say that you want to work on your marriage. What marriage are you referring to? You're married, but your wife isn't. How's that been working out for you so far? You will be back here in another 6 months or maybe even a year with another episode where your wife has crapped all over you and your mill is watching the kids while your wife and the AP go away for the weekend. The more you give in to your wife, the more that she is going to dump all over you and treat you like a doormat. I'm sorry, mate, I believe in reconciliation, but I just don't know how you could ever love or trust her again. The way she flaunted an affair in your face, tried to frame you for domestic cruelty and tried to take everything from you, I just can't believe someone like that cares about you at all. I hope you find what you are looking for. I really feel sorry for you, man, after reading your story. It would be better if you cut off all the toxicity out of your life. Have some self-respect and stop being a doormat. Hope you get the courage to divorce your wife and move on with your life. Worldwide comments of the day: if this man gets cheated on again, it's on him. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Shaking my head. Do not, I repeat, do not remarry. She should never get the fruits of your labor. At best she's a non-cohabitating girlfriend, one of many. If the ex is bipolar, run. How many times have we heard about these people and it going haywire? Keep her out of your finances. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more interesting and relatable Reddit videos.